Halo Infinite's content drought is about to end, alright, because the story is about to get a massive reveal. Shadows of Reach is a novel confirmed a while back, and while there isn't anything you need to know in this book for the game, it's setting up the events for Halo Infinite in its own unique way. And 343 and the publisher actually sent me an early copy of this book, which I'll be reviewing and then breaking down eventually later. Let me tell you, there is some juicy stuff in here that, in my opinion, I don't think you'll want to miss. But until that embargo lifts, Halo Waypoint has had a very extended interview with Halo franchise lead editor Jeremy and also Troy, the writer of this book, who wrote this new Halo Infinite prelude novel, as I call it. And I have to say, I am just blown away, but this interview actually has a lot of things discussing Halo Infinite and how it ties in with the story, and just a bunch of stuff you will not want to miss. But before we get started, as always, guys, go ahead and smash that like button blue if you enjoy this kind of content. And while you're at it, join me on the 9+ year journey of following Halo. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the notification gang. Alright, let's jump into it. This video is supported by Audible. Snag yourself a free Halo audiobook right down in the description below. So firstly, if you don't know, Shadows of Reach was announced a few months ago, and now it's coming out October 20th, and it is really relevant to Halo Infinite, and it takes place October 2559. That's one whole year after Halo 5, and it's sort of in a dark area of Halo lore where there's really not much information at all. But essentially, the book description reads that Cortana issued a galaxy-wide ultimatum, and like we saw at the end of Halo 5, and so Blue Team essentially goes back to Reach to go to Castle Base and recover top-secret assets locked away in Dr. Catherine Halsey's abandoned laboratory, assets that might prove useful to be humanity's last hope against Cortana. And boy, like, it's just, oh, it's so exciting reading this. But Reach has been invaded by a powerful and ruthless alien faction who have their own reasons for being there. And as for a long time, I have kept repeating, I think it's the Banished, I think it's the Banished. And in this interview, which we'll get to in a moment, basically confirms over and over, yeah, it's the Banished here. This is just, we may have actually seen this from the Xbox announcement trailer a while back, with Master Chief seeing a huge war on a planet. It can't be a Halo ring because none is in sight. Also, it's very likely that the Banished are here based on Halo Wars 2 art. Essentially, I believe for a long time, even this little teaser here we got a while ago, and then once again saw in the Step Inside trailer at the July 23rd reveal, that Master Chief is on Reach, dispatched about this mission that we are bound to read about in Shadows of Reach. I also believe that we are going to see another trailer very soon, next month perhaps, right before the Xbox Series X drops. I believe they are doing a gameplay launch trailer, and it would be ridiculous for them to not have Halo in it. So, like I said earlier, you do not need to read this book to understand and enjoy Halo Infinite, alright? They learned that lesson hardcore with Halo 5. With that being said, alright, it doesn't mean that snippets of this book, if not a large chunk of this book, includes maybe the first part, the first act, maybe the first or second mission of the Halo Infinite campaign, or, you know, being in the gameplay, and what we read in this book maybe will be retold in Halo Infinite. So ultimately, this is sort of like the prelude and the opening act, if you will, to the game, potentially. So basically, this whole book is the first mission of Halo Infinite, I think. In fact, later we will see that it is confirmed that there will be cool connections, cool setups that essentially will pay off in Halo Infinite if you read this book. But I got you guys covered. I'm going to be covering the whole book on October 20th when the book officially drops, and I'm going to see if I can talk about it earlier, but probably not. But let's get to the first interesting part of this interview. Grimm, the post writer and interviewer, also community manager at 343, said this: "To reiterate, this isn't a story that anyone needs to read in order to understand the events in the next game. That being said, it's also fair to say that readers of this book will be rewarded with cool connective tissues that they might recognize not just in Infinite." So right there, a confirmation that this book will basically pay off things in Infinite if you read it, right? But they say, as you mentioned, having ties to several other stories in our universe in a variety of mediums. So some people are saying, will we see Noble 6 in this book or in the beginning of Infinite? maybe, maybe not, who knows, but maybe this might actually tie into a little bit of Noble Team. So they say, Troy, take us home. What do you hope fans get from reading Shadows of Reach? They say, first and always foremost, a good read. When someone tells me they couldn't put one of my books down, I know we've connected. There are so many different kinds of books out there and so many different kinds of readers that are making that kind of connection is rare and special. Even after 30 years of writing, I'm still thrilled when it happens. And Grimm went on to confirm that the Walmart edition of Shadows of Reach will include a short story titled Sacrifice. He said right off the bat, don't look into this title too much, don't worry about it, it makes sense when you see it. So I don't think it's like Blue Team, one of the members die or trying to sacrifice themselves, but considering that a lot of what Halo Reach was initially about, which was sacrifice, like what we saw with Noble Team, perhaps this actually ties into maybe Noble 6 still surviving. Like we see exactly what happened to Noble 6, how he lost his helmet and why there was a plasma burn inside of his helmet, or maybe it's a little short story about Dr. Halsey or something involving Castle Base, which is what this whole book is about. So Jeremy explains, by the way, Jeremy is 343's franchise lead editor. All right, he says that basically Troy really gets Halo, and honestly, from what I read in this book, I'd personally agree. It just feels so Halo, especially going back to Reach is just insane. This story was crafted, they say, with caution because they knew that this was a very important story to Halo fans and that the Spartans were turning to Reach in a very real way. And Troy actually goes to confirm something really big here about the novel. He says, and I'll say that 343 is great about giving its writers the latitude to write a story that excites them while at the same time providing an envelope to work in when it comes to certain key elements. For example, 343 wanted Shadows to give a glimpse into certain plot points, right there, big thing, alright, certain plot points that also come to further fruition within Halo Infinite. What he is saying there is that this book sets up Halo Infinite, and really what I'm hearing here is that even though Shadows of Reach is not a book that you have to read to understand Halo Infinite, a lot of things in here are going to show up and be explained in Halo Infinite. So this is sort of like a big Halo Infinite introduction that will also be setting up perhaps things as far as Act 2 and Act 3 in the actual campaign, which is just crazy to me, but that's what I'm speculating on anyway. But he says, and oftentimes this can mean that certain elements that I'm writing in my manuscript are brought to life in parallel with ones being developed for Halo Infinite story and gameplay. Alright, I know it's not big, but now he's talking about gameplay, and I have to imagine he is referring to how often in Halo gameplay there is dialogue going through the mission, a lot of important dialogue that is, interesting and cool that people kind of maybe not pay attention to as much because it's not in cutscene form, but certainly a big part of the game. And these are things, again, let me recap what he said there. Essentially, Halo Shadows of Reach is setting up things that we're going to see in Halo Infinite. Grim Brother 1 then says this, I know the Halo Infinite campaign in some ways had been referred to as a spiritual echo of the original Halo Combat Evolved, and there's an interesting and intentional parallel to be drawn to where we are now in regards of pairing up products. And Jeremy responds saying, exactly. Our main goal here was to create a kind of a spiritual sequel to Halo Fall of Reach. Alright, that was the first book in the line of Halo novels. It released almost 20 years ago, and that's insane. That's one of my favorite books, and the fact that this is a spiritual sequel to it, Shadows of Reach, makes it just, it really ties in the fact that Halo Infinite is also basically a big spiritual reboot of what kicked off this franchise. And he says that sprung up the heels of the dark and tragic events of Halo 5 Guardians. We wanted to capture a pivotal moment in time through the lens of Blue Team on the world in which they'd been forged. Obviously, what they're referring to there is the fact that Blue Team was trained and pretty much raised on Reach. And they say that's really the primary focus of the story from my perspective. So that is super juicy stuff there. Moving on, they also talk about how you can enjoy the books without the games or the games without the books. Jeremy says there is no easy task, especially when you desire that in every aspect of the universe is at all times relevant and meaningful for our fans. We always want to be extraordinarily careful with how this happens, and I credit both Troy and Ed for always being very amenable, allowing us to shift and adjust elements throughout the process. While I'd strongly caution fans to not read too far into anything in this novel or try to reverse engineer plot points or story points for the next game, we certainly worked hard for elements like Chief, the Banished, the general state of the universe to be entirely consistent, true, and in lockstep with everything we've done before and everything we've planned for in the future. So that's really, really key there. Let me just rephrase what he said. Don't look too much into this story. Do not try to look at story points and come up with big, wild theories based off them, although I feel like I'm going to be too tempted not to do that when I finally finish this book and want to break it down for you guys. But this has certainly got me really excited because, you know, setting up elements like Chief the Banished and kind of introducing this new era of Halo is really important, and this is sort of like our first actual look into the story that we've been waiting for 5 years. And honestly, I think we're a little bit ahead of our time here because Halo Infinite is probably going to be releasing holiday 2021, and this book has probably a lot of information that we were only supposed to find out about 1 month before the game dropped. So just some food for thought. Jeremy explains one character stands out in Shadows of Reach, and keep in mind there is a chance that this character could appear in Halo Infinite, and as confirmed earlier, anything is up in the air, and this book, like I said, with a lot of evidence, is essentially Halo Infinite story in a nutshell. Although Halo Infinite will explain it itself, this is kind of a bit of Halo Infinite story, I believe, probably excluding, you know, the whole Zeta Halo events and what happens there, which is the majority of the game, but certainly the first act is in this book, I have to think, for Infinite. But in Salon, Gordai, I don't know how to say that, grew on me from the very beginning. He says from the story, he's a very mysterious, banished Sankili, who Troy just nails in execution. The subtleties of his character, his own convictions, and how he interacts with others, he's just a very enjoyable and unique Sankili character that I think fans will gravitate to. And right there is potentially a new character that we're going to see in Halo Infinite as well, because we do know that there are several new characters coming, including Jaga, which was that Silent Shadow probably guy hunting Master Chief throughout Halo Infinite's campaign, and then of course Ashura, which is the big bad guy in Halo Infinite probably, and I don't even know why I say probably. It's pretty much confirmed he is the big bad guy and big villain. He even mentions though that another banished character, Castor, who is very real to the reader, maybe disagreeing with him at times as the reader. However, we'll probably find ourselves rooting for him. Keep in mind, as I've said many times throughout this video, that this book is probably setting up Halo Infinite in a lot of ways, as it's been pretty much confirmed. So in Salon, this Sankili that's very mysterious and has interesting convictions, and also Castor, a brute, are probably characters going to be in Halo Infinite, or maybe along Atriox's, line of command. So here it was asked, from your perspective, what should fans expect to gain from this book in regards to its place in the universe and overall timeline? Jeremy responds, our main desire here is to bring Blue Team back to Reach, and to do that in the shadow of the events of Halo 5 Guardians. For many fans, Halo Fall of Reach represents the foundation of the franchise's deeper story roots, while Halo Combat Evolved brought droves of gamers into the universe through an amazing tale and extraordinary gameplay. Eric Nyland's Halo Fall of Reach is what really fleshed out the universe for those who wanted more. And oh my goodness, how have I not noticed this? I'm lost for words right now. Just like the cover for Halo Infinite is resembling Halo Combat Evolved, Shadows of Reach The freaking cover is pretty much Fall of Reach's cover that was made almost 20 years ago. Wow. Jeremy also says, we knew that this was a place we've wanted to go back to for some time, and to do that in a way that thematically complemented the original story. Fans should go to this novel with the expectation that the story moves the universe's overall narrative forward in the wake of the traumatic events of the last game by returning to its roots, the place where it all began. There are elements that touch on Halo: The Fall of Reach, Halo First Strike, and even the game Halo Reach that we hope fans will be pleased with. Honestly, I have to level with you guys. This is just got me so excited, and I think this probably falls under the lines of a review, and I think if you like those things, Halo Fall of Reach, Halo First Strike, the actual game, Shadows of Reach is kind of using elements from those things, those games and pieces of that, and kind of rebirthing it into what we see here, kind of like a spiritual reboot, but, you know, with those, you know, pieces of Halo. And the fact is that I honestly do believe those are going to be pillars that set up Halo Infinite's story and the campaign and the cutscenes and in the gameplay. These things that we see in the book, I've been saying for quite some time, have to definitely be related to Halo Infinite. Obviously, they keep talking about Infinite in this post, and I'm just so excited to see what they find at Castle Bay. Why is Blue Team going back there exactly? Like, what assets are going to put Cortana in her place potentially? And they also say they should also expect further introduction to the Banished, the enemy which takes center stage as the main threat to humanity in both this story as well as Halo Infinite. Well, there you go, guys. The Banished are the main enemy in the game. Not quite a big surprise, but that is quite a big confirmation, not only for the book, but also Halo Infinite. They say this isn't certainly new for those who have played Halo Wars 2 or read Halo Rise of Atriox, but it does offer new details on who they are and what they're like. And I can confirm that, being very careful with what I say here, because I don't want to say anything that I'm not allowed to say. But yeah, this is a good introduction. It is really refreshing to just learn more lore and to learn about the Banished, and I'm just so excited to read more of this book. But this book is really exciting. It has been a fun read, and I think it has delivered really well. And I have to imagine that this stuff is it's like a big war. It's just a bunch of Halo Infinite news in a big, sexy. How many pages is this? It's a lot of pages. It's a lot of pages. Almost 1,000 pages in this thing. And I am just so, oh my god, it is so much reading. I'm not really a person to sit down and read Halo books back to back, but with this one I am, because not only is it probably tying in a lot with the story, but also it's like giving really great context for the Banished and exactly what is going on here, you know, what giving us really good context as far as what the universe is, and as far as like what the status of the galaxy is, and where Master Chief is. Guys, be sure to snag yourself that free Halo audiobook, and hey, you know what? You could even probably get Shadows of Reach, and that's a big probably. I'm not quite sure if it's immediately available, but it is on Audible. But worst case, you can grab yourself any other Halo audiobook. Of course, just sign up, link down in the description, helps the channel out quite a bit, and also get a free book for 30 days. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I am so thrilled to not only review Shadows of Reach, but also really dive deep, because as I have really beat the horse dead here, I think this is tying into Infinite, you know? But with that being said, guys, be sure to like this video up if you haven't already, and if you watch this far, apparently you're interested in the content, be sure to subscribe and be the first to be notified here on HaloFollower with new videos, new content, and apparently a bunch of juicy stuff coming out very, very soon. The content drought is coming to a slamming halt here in probably just a week or two, so I will catch you guys in the next one soon. All right, you take care. Peace.